Okay, picture this. San Francisco 2007. You've got Brian Chesky, a designer, right in the heart of all this innovation, but he can't even scrape together enough cash for rent.
Yeah, it's kind of the classic, almost mythical startup origin, isn't it? Living room office, drowning in debt.
Exactly. And right from that point, that, desperation comes this idea. 3 airbeds, a simple breakfast.
And a concept so out there, so audacious, it just flew in the face of all traditional business thinking.
Totally. And look where it led. Airbnb. From that living room floor to this, what, $81 billion empire today? It's staggering.
It really is. And it's so much more than just, another tech success story. Airbnb fundamentally changed things.
How so?
Well, it didn't just shake up the hotel industry, it completely redefined travel, how we connect with places, how we think about home when we're away from home.
And Brian Chesky is right at the center of that whole revolution.
Absolutely. A designer who became a CEO, but who, as you said, built more than a company. He built a movement. And what's really fascinating, I think, is his focus. While everyone else was chasing profits,
He was obsessed with something else?
belonging, that was his word, that intangible feeling. And he wasn't afraid to, throw out the standard business playbook and just write his own rules. Constantly.
So that's what we're diving into today. We want to unpack that journey, right? Get inside the mindset that turned 3 air mattresses into this global phenomenon.
Yeah, explore the habits, the often really unconventional strategies, those pivot points, the decisions that made him such an influential figure.
And hopefully, for you listening, maybe spark something, a new way to look at your own idea, whatever that might be. Find its potential.
Exactly. So let's start at the beginning, those really scrappy origins, and what became this core idea, this belonging mindset.
The scrappy origins and the belonging mindset.
Okay, so 2007. As you said, Chesky wasn't exactly rolling in dough, not a trust fund kid, no fancy finance degree.
Nope. Just a designer in SF struggling, like really struggling to make rent. And it wasn't some abstract problem, it was immediate. Pay the landlord or get out.
And that pressure, that specific struggle, that's the seed.
That's the seed. It came down to something almost mundane. A big design conference hit town.
Ah, so hotels were packed.
Completely booked solid everywhere. That was the catalyst.
Right. A simple supply and demand problem. Most people would just, crash on a friend's couch.
Or panic.
Mm.
But Chesky and his roommate Joe Gebbia, they saw something else, an opportunity, born right out of their own need.
And the solution wasn't exactly rocket science.
Not at all. It was a pure necessity. Hey, let's throw some air mattresses on the floor.
Serve breakfast.
Charge $80 a night. Boom! They whipped up a basic website, called it Airbed and Breakfast.
So it wasn't some grand vision initially, just trying to make rent.
Pretty much.
Great.
A desperate fix.
Uh-huh.
But here's where it gets interesting. That immediate fix sparked something much deeper.
Okay, how so?
Well, yeah, they made a few $100, pay the landlord. Relief. But Chesky, with that designer's eye, he saw more than just a transaction.
He saw the human side.
Exactly. He saw connection. He saw this alternative to, those sterile, impersonal hotel rooms. A way for travelers to have a more personal, affordable, local experience.
He actually said something about that, didn't he? About solving your own problem.
Yeah, something like, the best business is solve your own problem, but in a way that touches everyone else's life too. That's the key insight.
So start personal. Feel the pain yourself.
Live it. Understand it inside out, then zoom out. Ask, is this just me, or is this a universal thing?
Could this solution help lots of people?
Right. And that really shifted how they thought about success from day one. It wasn't just about the cash register ringing.
It was about trust.
Trust. Building trust between strangers, hosts, and guests. That became the metric. Not just revenue, but that feeling of belonging.
Which sounds maybe a bit idealistic for a startup.
Maybe. But he argued it was actually the best long-term strategy. His whole thing was, make something so meaningful people have to tell their friends.
And that meant not selling out early. I heard they had offers.
Oh yeah, multiple offers for a quick payday. But they turned them down. They knew a fast sale would kill the fragile community, the trust they were trying to build. They were playing the long game.
Okay, speaking of unconventional strategies,
Yeah.
the cereal. We have to talk about the cereal boxes.
Oh, the cereal box hustle. It's legendary. So picture it. 2008. The startup's basically broke. Investors are saying no. They're desperate.
What do?
They design and sell breakfast cereal. Limited edition boxes, Obama O's and Captain McCain's, right during the election buzz.
Seriously? Like actual cereal?
Well, they bought store-bought cereal, but designed these amazing collectible boxes, hand-folded them themselves, and priced them at $40 a pop.
$40 for a box of cereal. That's insane.
Totally insane. Definitely not your typical fundraising tactic, but pure hustle.
Did it work?
It did. It raised about $30,000, which was crucial money when they have nothing. But maybe more importantly, it went viral, got them tons of press, made the brand stick in people's minds.
Wow. So underneath that craziness, there was a point.
There was a core belief. Real value comes from solving real pain. Airbnb wasn't just a website. It helped travelers who couldn't afford hotels, and it helped hosts make ends meet. It empowered regular people.
And fast forward, that $81 billion valuation. But for Chesky, the money was always
A byproduct, the result of building something people felt was worth belonging to.
So his financial thinking wasn't driven by spreadsheets.
Not primarily. It was empathy, intuition, that deep focus on the human experience, seeing opportunities where others saw liability.
And that mindset, that led to some really different financial strategies down the road.
Unorthodox financial strategy and strategic resilience.
Right, so you'd think with an idea like this, investors would be lining up, right? Throwing money at them.
You would think. But nope, not at all. Back in 2008, they got rejected. A lot.
How many times?
Pitched over 7 major VCs. All said no. The pitch itself.
What strangers sleep in other strangers' homes?
Yeah, to traditional investors, that just screamed liability nightmare. They couldn't get past the perceived risk. The trust factor seemed impossible to them.
So how do you keep going when the money people just aren't getting it?
Well, that's where the cereal came in again. That hustle didn't just raise cash.
It got them noticed.
Exactly. It caught the eye of Paul Graham,
The Y Combinator guy.
the Y Combinator guy.
The legendary startup accelerator.
Graham was apparently so impressed by their sheer grit, their willingness to do something that crazy.
He let them in.
He accepted them into YC, gave them $20,000 seed funding, and that moment, that was the turning point.
More than just the money, I guess.
Oh, way more. It was credibility, access to a network, mentorship, help refining the vision, making it sound less scary to investors.
Okay, so they get into YC. Now, the typical Silicon Valley move is blitzscaling, right?
Right.
Grow as fast as possible, grab market share.
Right, conquer the world overnight. But Chesky did the opposite.
What did he do?
He went for what he called a depth-first approach. His philosophy was, and this is a great quote, "It's better to have 100 people love you than 1,000 people kind of like you."
100 true fans.
Basically. Build a passionate core first. And this wasn't just talk. It drove their spending, their hiring, everything.
So slower hiring.
Intentional hiring. Finding people who really believed in the mission, not just filling seats.
Then not trying to be everywhere at once.
Nope. Mastering one neighborhood, one city at a time, really understanding it. Like in New York, early on, they literally went door to door.
Doing what?
Taking professional photos of listings themselves, coaching hosts on how to make their places welcoming, getting deep into the community.
Instead of just buying ads.
Exactly. They focused on building features and experiences that got people talking organically. Word of mouth was their engine.
Slower, maybe, but more solid.
It built incredible loyalty, and it paid off financially. By 2011, they raised $112 million at over $1 billion valuation.
Yeah.
2015, valued at $25.5 billion, and then the IPO, December 2020.
Right in the middle of the pandemic.
Insane timing. But they debuted at an $86 billion valuation. Day one, that depth-first, loyalty-driven strategy proved incredibly resilient.
It really challenged that whole grow fast or die mentality.
Absolutely. It showed that building that core of 100 lovers creates something much stronger, much more sustainable, especially when things get tough.
And things definitely got tough. Let's talk COVID, March 2020.
Yeah, the ultimate test. Global travel just stopped, vanished overnight.
And Airbnb's revenue.
Plummeted, down 80% almost instantly. They were staring into the abyss.
Okay, so crisis mode. Most CEOs would slash and burn, right? Protect the bottom line at all costs.
Standard crisis playbook. Layoffs, cut costs, maybe screw over some customers or partners to survive. But Chesky, he went a completely different way, a really counterintuitive way.
What did he do first?
First, the customers. Cancellations were flooding in. He decided Airbnb would refund them in full.
Even though the contracts probably didn't require it.
Exactly. It cost them hundreds of millions, a massive hit when they were already bleeding cash.
Yeah.
But he prioritized trust with the guests.
Okay, what about the hosts? They were devastated too.
Right. Their income disappeared overnight. So Chesky created a $250 million relief fund for hosts paid out of Airbnb's own pocket. He wasn't going to abandon them.
Wow, that's putting your money where your mouth is.
Seriously. And then, the hardest part, layoffs were unavoidable. They had to let go of 1,900 people.
How did he handle that?
His letter to the employees,
Yeah.
it went viral. It was so transparent, so humane, so full of empathy. He took responsibility, explained the why with brutal honesty, and offered real support, generous severance. It set a new standard.
So these weren't just PR moves. This was real leadership.
It felt like it. It was like watching brand equity being forged in fire. Investors were nervous, sure, but they also saw this deep commitment to values.
And the comeback.
Faster than anyone expected. By 2023, consistently profitable. Q4 2024, huge revenue, solid profit, an incredible recovery.
It really shows how he views finance, doesn't it?
Totally. It's not just numbers, it's trust. With guests, hosts, investors, the whole ecosystem, earning that loyalty, that emotional capital, even when it costs you in the short term. That's his edge. And it connects directly to his daily habits.
The habits of a design-driven founder.
Yeah. Let's talk about those habits.
Yeah.
You mentioned he wasn't stuck in an office. He was out there living it.
Literally, especially in the early days. While other CEOs were glued to spreadsheets, Chesky was backpacking, booking random Airbnbs.
Just like a regular guest.
Exactly. He wanted to feel the product, understand the friction points, the delights, not from a report, but from actually sleeping on someone's air mattress. He lived the problem.
That's pretty unusual for a CEO.
It's deep empathy as a habit. His mantra was basically, be the customer, live the problem, then design the solution.
So not just relying on data analytics.
Data is important, but he complemented it with direct experience. He kept journals, detailed notes on everything, and he'd personally call people guests, hosts.
Really? The CEOs calling customers?
Yep. Wanted that raw, unfiltered feedback, no layers in between. It gave him this incredibly nuanced understanding of what people actually wanted and needed, much deeper than data alone could provide.
Okay, so living the problem led to insights. How did that translate into actual product development? You mentioned the 11-star experience.
Right. So he realized they were maybe trying to be too broad, too generic, too early. He wanted magic. He started asking this question. What would an experience need to be so amazing people tell 10 friends without us even asking?
Going beyond the standard 5 stars.
Way beyond. He pushed his team. Okay, 5 stars expected. What's 6? What's 7? Keep going. What's 10? What does an 11-star experience look like?
Use some crazy examples, right?
Yeah, like 11 stars is Elon Musk meets you at the airport in a Tesla and flies you to space. Just to stretch their thinking.
Okay, obviously not practical.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But then he'd say, okay, we can't do 11, but what's the 7-star version we can build?
So breaking it down.
Exactly. Maybe 5 stars is a clean room, 6 is a welcome note and a local treat. 7 is the host picks you up, knows your favorite coffee. It became this habit of constantly asking, how do we delight? How do we add that touch of magic? Prioritizing experience over just function or scale.
That takes focus, though, especially in a fast-growing company.
And that's another key habit, protecting focus. Fiercely. He guards his time and the company's attention like gold.
How does he do that?
He's known for making tough calls, killing entire product lines if they're distracting, pausing hiring, delaying launches to ensure clarity.
I think I read a quote from him about that.
Yeah, the startups don't die of starvation. They die of indigestion line, meaning trying to do too much is more dangerous than having too little.
So his schedule reflects that.
Absolutely. He avoids endless back-to-back meetings, carves out dedicated time each week just to think, right, imagine. He's not just reacting, he's proactively designing the company's direction.
And he stays involved in the details.
That's the remarkable thing. He never really left founder mode. Even now, years later, multi-billion-dollar company, he's in product reviews, looking at design mock-ups, involved in feature launches.
Why? Is it micromanagement?
I don't think so. It's about culture. He believes craft is culture. His point is, when the founder still sweats the details, everyone else knows the details matter.
So that's why Airbnb feels like it has a personality, a soul.
Exactly. It starts with him, with these deep-seated habits. And those habits, they come from a really clear philosophy about what Airbnb is actually for.
A philosophy of belonging and humanity.
Right, that core philosophy. He doesn't just see Airbnb as a booking website, does he?
Not at all. For him, it's fundamentally about this idea. People crave belonging. They don't just need a place to sleep. They need to feel connected, welcomed, like they belong there, even if just for a night.
And belonging isn't just marketing fluff.
He insists it's the company's operating system. It drives decisions. It's why they did that big rebrand in 2014.
Around belong anywhere.
Exactly.
Huh?
They even created that symbol, the bellow, meant to represent people, places, love, belonging. It was a statement. Travel is about connection. Hospitality is about inviting someone into your life.
It really forces you to think, how does one core belief shape everything a CEO does, from features to finance?
It suggests a different kind of leadership, where values aren't just posters on the wall, they're genuinely baked into the company's DNA.
And it explains why he's always talking about designers and storytellers, right? Pixar, Disney, Apple.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because they didn't just sell products. They created experiences. They made you feel something. That's his aspiration for Airbnb.
Not just a tech company, but a cultural force.
Yeah, something that brings humanity back into travel, which can sometimes feel very transactional. He said the future of travel isn't about more transactions. It's about deeper trust.
How does that play out in the platform itself?
Well, think about how they rank listings. It's not just price and location. They try to surface host quality, the story, the uniqueness of the place. Those intangibles, as he calls them, that feel more human, promoting unique stays, experiences hosted by locals. It's a push beyond just algorithms.
And this ties into his personal philosophy, too, not just chasing wealth.
Seems like it. While others track net worth, he seems genuinely driven by, did we make the world feel a bit smaller, kinder, more connected?
It's why he turned down those acquisition offers.
He says it was about protecting the mission. He believes companies die when they lose their soul. For Airbnb, that soul is the community, the belonging.
We saw that during COVID, didn't we? The decisions he made.
Absolutely. Refunding guests, supporting hosts, even when it hurt financially. That layoff letter, it felt like values guiding decisions, not just spreadsheets. Doing the right thing, even when it wasn't immediately profitable.
And then he started living in Airbnbs full-time.
Yeah, in 2022. Moving every few weeks. Not a stunt, he said, but truly living the product, embodying that citizen of the world idea, experiencing what Airbnb stands for firsthand.
It makes him seem less like a typical CEO.
And more like a missionary, maybe. Building a worldview, not just a business. For him, a bedroom is a bridge. It's this idea of a revolution, but one with a heart.
And that philosophy, that definitely shapes how he leads, how he uses his influence.
Power, influence, and legacy.
So his leadership style isn't about top-down commands.
No, it feels much more based on conviction, trust, empathy, that clarity of vision, and listening. Really listening.
We saw that clearly during COVID.
That was the ultimate test case, wasn't it? Facing that existential crisis, losing 80% of the business, instead of just reacting with brute force cuts.
He responded with humanity.
Exactly. Refunding guests, the host fund, the transparent communication, taking public responsibility.
I remember that quote from an investor.
Yeah. The rare CEO who can look $1 billion problem in the eye and ask, what's the human response to this? That sums it up.
So his influence comes from earning loyalty, not demanding it.
Right. It's built on those decisions, especially the hard ones, that show what the company truly stands for. That builds a much deeper, more resilient kind of power.
And he uses symbolism really effectively too, doesn't he? Like living in Airbnbs.
That's a perfect example. Underrated tools, symbolism, and storytelling. Announcing he'd live full-time in Airbnbs.
What message did that send?
To his team, to hosts, it was huge. It said, I believe in this so deeply, I'm literally living it. That's powerful symbolic leadership. Action backing up the words, reinforcing that be the customer idea massively.
What about newer stuff like AI? How does that fit his philosophy?
Well, his vision for AI isn't about replacing people, which is the fear with a lot of tech. He talks about empowering hosts.
Oh.
Using AI to help hosts tell better stories about their spaces, make smarter matches between guests and hosts based on interests, create more personalized experiences, using tech to enhance connection, not automate it away. Magic at scale, he calls it.
So amplifying humanity, not displacing it.
That seems to be the goal. It's a really interesting challenge. Can AI actually make things more human?
And his influence goes beyond Airbnb itself now into philanthropy.
Yeah, he's committed significantly there. Joined the Giving Pledge in 2022.
Meaning he'll donate most of his wealth.
The majority of it, yes. And he made that huge $100 million commitment to the Obama Foundation's leadership programs.
Why focus on leadership?
Because he believes in scaling people. He actually said the most important product you'll ever build is the next generation of leaders.
Wow. So for him, power isn't something to hoard.
Exactly. It's not a crown to wear, but a torch to pass on. He's trying to build something based on community, creativity, conscience, a legacy that's about values, not just valuation.
Okay, so let's pull all this together. What are the big takeaways for us, for listeners? Lessons and takeaways.
Well, the first thing that strikes me is that Chesky's story isn't about luck at all. It's about a mindset.
Seeing potential where others just see problems.
Exactly. Couldn't pay rent. Don't just find a job, invent a whole new category. Investors laugh. Don't give up, sell cereal. Pandemic hits. Don't just cut costs, lead with compassion.
It really seems like success today comes down to staying close. Close to the problem, close to the people you're serving.
Absolutely. And realizing that the most valuable currency you have, especially in a business built on connecting strangers, is trust. Built slowly, carefully, decision by decision.
And it highlights that real innovation isn't just about tech or money. It's about care. Is that the right word?
I think it is. Caring enough to really understand your users beyond the data points. Caring enough to make those tough calls that might hurt now, but build trust for the long haul. Caring enough to just keep showing up, especially when it's hard.
Like Chesky says, you can build something huge, even from a tiny apartment floor, if you build it with heart.
That sums it up perfectly. It doesn't matter where you start a fancy office or an air mattress. What matters is how much you believe, how deeply you connect with the human need you're trying to meet.
And if your idea helps people feel seen, safe, like they belong,
Then maybe, just maybe, the world really is waiting for it. It makes you think, doesn't it? What if the next truly massive idea isn't about immediate scale, but about solving a human problem deeply, for just a few people first, building on that trust? What airbed idea is right under our noses? Outro.
so it makes you ask yourself, right, are you waiting? Waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for someone else's permission, waiting for funding before you really commit.
Brian Chesky didn't wait.
Eh.
He had 3 airbeds, an idea everyone thought was nuts, and this incredible sense of possibility. And he turned it into a global movement that changed everything about travel.
You don't need billions to start. You need a problem that matters, a story people connect with, and maybe most importantly, the guts to care more than anyone else.
To be more empathetic, more resilient.
So if you're out there building something, keep going. If you're dreaming about starting something, maybe today's the day.
And if you hit those moments of doubt, just remember Chesky.
Remember that the next world-changing idea might just be waiting, maybe even sleeping, right there on your own apartment floor.